Hi, I'm Rob Boyd, an English photographer from the UK. I decided to create this podcast series talking to international photographers whose work I truly love. I realised I knew nothing about these amazing people apart from their names and their stunning work. So I created a set of hopefully entertaining questions that finds out who they are and what they love. Hi Barry, nice to see you here. Nice to meet you. And see you again, actually. We spent a bit of time, the other week. It was great. Mm-hmm. So if you can start with your name and your Instagram name, that'd be amazing.
Okay. My name's Barry Lewis. My Instagram name is Barry Lewis Photography. And my website is barrylewisphotography.com. So it's pretty straightforward. And I've been a photographer for 50 years now.
Yeah, a long time. Not saying you're
long,
old.
Long time.
And where do you live?
I live in London. I've lived in the same house for about over 40 years. But I spent about kind of 9 years living in the Midlands in Leicestershire, where I did a bit of university there. Then I did some teaching, and then I was working in the Poly teaching photography. But then I came back to London, and I was very lucky. I kind of won a scholarship to the Royal College, so I kind of came down, and suddenly my life changed. Really
amazing, absolutely perfect break. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Lovely. And where are you from originally?
From London. I've come from East London, and we stayed there till I was 6. I went to school there at first, and then they kind of ran away from the slums and moved to a place called Bexley, which is out in the suburbs. So I had a suburban kind of childhood. And then at 18, I went to university and started, I left home at 17, actually. I left home and started getting on with life.
Yeah. And the changes, God, between, when you first saw the East End to now, completely different, I should think.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, it's kind of, East End is such a broad brush, isn't it? They couldn't give away houses when kind of I was there. Even when I was there at the beginning, I when I left university, I didn't quite know what to do. I spent half my time. I was a chemist. I was teaching science in a school right in the middle of Hackney. And then I was spending 3 days a week working in South London, really learning photography. I worked with a theatre group, and I was doing their photographs. So I self-taught really. And I got lots of questions. You'll come to this a bit later. When I was young, I was very into science and inventions and things. And in fact, they came and interviewed me at the Royal College, because they were expecting me to be a scientist, because I won this competition. It was called Young Scientist of the Year, a BBC one, and from one of my inventions. Everybody, including me, thought I was going to be a scientist. And then, I started taking drugs and going to demonstrations and got into photography that way.
Right. Different side of chemistry.
That's right, yeah. Make my own formula.
Excellent. What was the invention? What was the actual thing that won you the prize?
It measured the moisture in things. I did a lot of work with metal, and when you cast things in sand, you need the exact amount of moisture. And it was basically a moisture meter. It had these probes, and you put the stuff in and you pushed it in, and it told you how much water was in it. And then it was kind of bought. I think the bread industry bought it, and I got no money. I went to the school, but I got fame. My moment of fame.
Excellent. No, that's amazing. That's a claim to fame on its own. Bloody hell.
Well, that was my secret question. I don't tell many people about that. I got it in early.
I'm honoured.
I think everybody should read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's for me, that was the most important book, which is about that science and the arts. There's been this false separation of science and art, and probably the logic of doing science degree really helped my way of thinking once I became a photographer.
Yeah.
I can kind of put my thoughts into kind of order.
Oh, that's
sometimes when I'm not stoned, yeah.
I have to dig that out. That sounds like a good tip then.
Oh, it's a wonderful book. I wrote a thesis on it for my master's. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. A must in every photographer's lexicon.
There you go. All the publications go up now. Everybody's digging it out. So if I visited you, where would you take me to shoot?
Yeah, well, London's full of places, isn't it? I think it depended what day of the week. We should really have a little kind of a 3-day session, or maybe even 4. So on a Saturday, Camden Lock's the obvious one. You've got lots going on. You never know where what's going to happen. And then from Camden Lock, you start walking down the canal to East London, to London Fields, and you're going around the back of London. So you get a kind of sense of things, and it's full of, things will happen. You might get pushed in the water, but things will happen. And then again, another weekend one would be Columbia Road and Brick Lane. Columbia Road is the old market for flowers, and it's about 10 minutes walk from Brick Lane, and they've all become gentrified, but it's full of people parading, a bit like Camden Lock. Now, during the week, a quieter, more thoughtful journey would be to kind of, not just to shoot, actually. I would take you to Holborn, and we'd go to the John Soane Museum, so you get a bit of culture, and it's got all of Hogarth's Rake's Progress stuff there, and it's free and it's amazing. You get there just when it opens, otherwise you get lots of people going. And then I'll take you down to the smallest pub in London, called the Seven Dials, which is just not that far from there, behind the law courts, and you'll be looked after by my friend Roxy Beaujolais, who is the best cook and the most outrageous landlady in London. And you'll meet people in the pub. Finally is the Soho trip. You get meals with my service as well. It's not just seeing things. We would start at Piccadilly Circus and would start with an early lunch, Brasserie Zedel, and have a little bit of Paris in the thing. It's an amazing brasserie. It's not expensive. It's one of the few places that aren't expensive in central London, and it's like walking back into the Belle Époque. It's like going straight back into Zola's time. It's amazing. It's huge, and they have bands and all sorts of things, and it's not expensive. And then we walk through Soho, and you'd meet endless people, and end up in Bar Italia, which where everybody kind of gravitates to in the end. So there you got kind of 4 different trips.
That's
all
amazing.
in one.
God, it feels like a weekend. Yeah,
well, no, it's more than a weekend, really. I think, well, in the end, what you do is whatever makes you happy, you start somewhere, and once you're kind of carried into the place, you could equally go where I live. It's 5 minutes to get into Highgate Cemetery, Hampstead Heath. You could be like in the countryside. It's, I love it where I live. And that's the only advantage of being old, that you can afford to live in a place like Highgate, which is become impossible. It's just like it was ordinary people lived there. Now it's all merchant bankers and wankers.
See, that's the title of a book.
Yes.
Merchant bankers and wankers.
Yeah, go down really well, wouldn't it, with all the people with money?
Yeah,
they wouldn't buy it.
I love it. Oh, that's great. Now, normally I ask, are there any places for tourists? But I mean, you're in London. I mean, you've got everything on your doorstep, so you can't really can't really narrow that one down.
And more parts than any other kind of capital city. So you've got, London's a great place, but unfortunately, it used to be not expensive. After I was teaching and came down to London for the Royal College, I bought an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment in Highgate for unbelievable. It was all paid for by my grant. That shows how cheap it was. Wow. I won't say the price. It was nothing. Yeah. It was covered by my grant. And nothing like that happens now. That's a shame. London was full of kind of old warehouses, all sorts of places, lots of squats, so people could live cheaply and be in the city. Now everything is controlled by, big money, and it's more tricky. Boys, I'm sure you know. Yeah, I mean, the only thing really with London now, there's so many free museums. I mean, that's thank God that's still the case. You can still have free entertainment, but actually for living costs, ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, when you get as old as me, everything's free. I've got my press card so I can get into anything, and I've got my bus pass. Yeah. So, but I tend to I've got an electric bike and I cycle. I know. I remember when you told me that, I was like very impressed, not saying you're elderly. I'm just saying I'm impressed you're cycling in London in general, It's amazing. Oh, yeah. Well, I had a motorbike for 50 years, so it's kind of, I'm used to being in traffic, so I'm alive, touch wood. My bike was stolen. I had this lovely old, it was about 5 years I had it. I got it second hand. It was an American electric bike. is a fat tire bike, and I did everything on it. And it was nicked a couple of days before Christmas, and I just got it back last week.
Oh, wow.
A kid was trying to kind of sell it to a mate of mine who runs a bike shop, and he called me.
Wow.
He got his phone number, and I said, well, it's either you bring it round to me or the police come round to you. And I've got it back. I've got to get it back on the road.
Oh, amazing.
Sadly, I found out that it was 3 times the maximum size of motors for the UK. It's fine for America. So I've been a kind of an outlaw for the last 5 years. No wonder I can zoom up those hills. I pedal all the time, but I can put all my gear. I've got a basket in the back. I can put my cameras and all of that stuff. But I've just got to stop the thieves from having it now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I won't tell anybody about the illegal, motor if you don't.
Oh, I don't mind. They won't catch me.
No, absolutely.
No, they're always after. I think 60% of the delivery bikes are illegal because they're over motor size. You couldn't carry that stuff unless you've got a bigger motor.
Yeah.
So the police, it's only when kids are kind of flying around without using the pedals, they've got little throttles, they're going straight through traffic lights and stuff. That's when they get caught, take the bike away. But, I'm an old man, and I'm hoping, but I've just bought a new kind of Chinese bike that's so underpowered because it's the legal limit. So I'm thinking, gosh, I thought I was fitter than that going up and down the hills, but
while that one's new, sell that one while it's new and go back to your old faithful. That'd be great.
I think I will. Yeah, I'll do that because I can get nearly all the money back for it. It's a very nice bike, but it's just not good for hills. Anyway, back to photography.
Yeah, okay. So, what's your favourite destination in the world? It must be difficult to choose, but where do you love in the world?
Again, it's tricky. I've got lots of them. I've got a list here: Japan, Thailand, India, and south of France. But there's loads of other places. It could be Albania. I love Albania. I love Romania because I spent a lot of time in all of those places. I think for someone who hasn't done a lot of traveling, I say Japan's the easiest because I can remember once being in Shinjuku Station, and it's the busiest station in the world. There's something like 8 million people a day, or maybe more, go through every day. And I was able to just leave my camera bag with all the lenses in the middle of the station, going off just with one camera and a lens. And I knew it would never be touched. There's a kind of huge honor there. Maybe it's all changed. I haven't been there for kind of about 20 years, so it may have all gone to shit. But no, Japan's great. Thailand is wonderful, wonderful food. The people are great. Also, Thailand, Vietnam, Japan, as a kind of gaijin, as an outsider, you're almost invisible. So it means you can they really don't see you deliberately. They get on with their own life. So it's very easy to do street photography. You don't get people kind of getting bothered.
Yeah.
You just can go. Presumably you're being impolite, but you don't know because you can't speak the language. So I had a friend that lived in Japan. He said, whatever you do, don't language it. Don't tell them you can speak a few words of the language because you can get away with murder as an outsider. But then I lived in south of France for several years, and I like it there. I've got a place down there. But no, the French are very different from the South Asians. They're very
well, if you don't get a shrug, you're not in France,
That's right, yeah. Well, they expect you to be able to understand French, which luckily I can, but I think it's not a place that they don't help you through the day when you're working there. No. You've got to, but they are absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. So the tricky one now, because obviously, where would you most like to visit in the world? I mean, you've been travelled.
Well, there's not many places I've not been, but what I'd love to do is return to America after Trump leaves, and and the dust settles. Because it's spent ages. I worked in the 60s. I worked on the railroad in America, and I love the Americans and the fact, you can speak the language, but you're still in a strange land, and and they're so hospitable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'd love to return without what's going on at the moment. I hope the pendulum goes back.
Yeah, God, let's hope so. As Brits, we're like, for God's sake, just get on with it. Let's get back to normal, for God's sake. But yeah, it's such a vast country as well. I mean, it's huge, and I mean, you can never cover all of it and see so many places in a lifetime to where you want to go.
No, and it differs so much, and they have got this, even with all the things going on, individually they'll help you. It's a great place to work as a photographer. And it's so big, you can always find little kind of pockets of places. I've done a lot of work in Louisiana and the Cajun culture. Obviously, California's what it is. It's easy to work there. East Coast is interesting. The middle I haven't done so much work in. But I think it's a fascinating place, and it's a great place for doing road trips. Also petrol's not as expensive as everywhere else in the world, but who knows? It'll all be electric cars by then.
Yeah.
Often when I go to America, I just go somewhere. Often with a job, I get paid to go and do something, and then I give myself another couple of weeks just to go on the road and just go from motel to motel and kind of have adventures. You always do.
Absolutely. Always. That's the only way. Go with an open agenda, and you can't go wrong, can you?
No, an open heart as well, because it's often the most scary looking people. Once you approach them in the right way, are not scary at all. They're just scared.
Yeah.
So you've got kind of these heavy bikers, and once you start talking to them, and I remember being in Detroit, and they all thought I was French. Because in Detroit, they've had a really hard time. No tourists in Detroit. Yeah. And people were coming up to me and saying, and this was in really difficult areas, but everybody they loved it. I was coming to their city. They're still proud of their city, as it's kind of, the center of Detroit is half full. Once outside the kind of civil center, they've knocked down half the houses. It's like a wilderness. But, you've got to be careful, but people are.
Yeah.
It's such a great place to work.
Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent. So a bit of a weird one, but if you could time travel, where and when would you visit?
Yeah. I would have I think I would probably have gone to America with with Jack Kerouac and the Beats. And I would have loved to have been around at that time and have my camera.
Yeah, cool.
I think so. I think that, but who knows? There's so many places, I think places were more dangerous for strangers in the past. You're more likely to get killed. You had a lower life expectancy, but I think it'd be, if you had with your magic trip, you could also have your magic potion that kept you alive. It would be fascinating.
Magic bubble to protect you. It'd be great.
That's right.
So if you could photograph anyone in history, who would you shoot? You've obviously shot a lot of people already,
I have. I missed a few of them as well. It'd have been interesting to have been on the coattails of kind of Napoleon when he was kind of being very successful in his wars. But you had to have your magic potion so you didn't get hit by a cannonball. But just to have been sitting on his coattails, or Wellington, you could have been floating between them. But I think that was an interesting time.
Yeah. Good choice. Yeah.
Good. Well, you've got to say that, haven't you? I don't know if there is a good choice. It's a very difficult question, that. There's a bit of it in this book I'm doing. I was in where was I? I was in Santa Fe graphing. I managed to wangle a kind of a free course on Photoshop. I was working for Corbis at the time, and they paid for me to go out and learn Photoshop, high level Photoshop. And I had to go, and it was based in Santa Fe, and I went out to take some pictures of strangers, and I bumped into a load of cowboys. They were burying one of the other cowboys, and I thought, oh, cool, I can't kind of walk in and barge in and take pictures, but I thought, I really want this picture. So I waited till the body was down. I wandered over and I said, I've never seen a cowboy before. And they said, we're not cowboys, we're mountain men. And I said, oh, great, can I take your picture? And I took a portrait of a couple of them. And then I said, I'll let you go. And I also found out they lived up in a place called Pecos, which is up in the mountains. as they would if they're mountain men. When I finished the course, a week later, I'd given myself this 2-week freedom to do which I could go anywhere. And you're right in the middle of America. I'd done a really nice picture of these guys, and the guy running the course had made a couple of prints. We did a print swap, and I had my picture of mountain men, and he gave me a spare copy. So I thought, I know, it's a quest. I knew nothing about where they lived. I went searching for the mountain men. I drove to Pecos, and I just kept asking. I stood in Pecos. There's only one shop in Pecos, a kind of like store, mail shop, everything. And I stood there with this camera with the photo going up to everybody saying, have you seen these men? And eventually someone said, oh, they're up in the mountain. I said, I know that, they're mountain men. And he pointed me the rough direction. And I followed the photo, and I ended up going down this one-track road up into the mountains with a gate at the end. Climbed over the gate, had my camera, and I had my photo, my quest. And there was a big farm. Nothing was going on. It was empty. But I could hear music, and I walked through a door. The music was playing. There's no one in there. And I knew I'd got the right place because it was full of saddles and things hanging up, mountain men type stuff hanging up. And I took a picture, and it's in that set that I sent you there was a TV was on, and there was a couple of screens, and it was the people being brought back from Afghanistan, I think it was, or Iraq. I'm not sure. I think nothing is Iraq. And I heard a cough behind me, and I spun round. I felt terrible. I thought I might get shot. And because I was in this person's house, and I recognized him straight away. And I hold my photograph of him as kind of to hide behind. And he suddenly recognized who I was. He said, oh, thank God. He said, we thought you were the feds. And what they were it was a big marijuana farm. That's what they did. That's how they made their money, as well as being cowboys. And so everybody was in hiding. They're all hiding in the bushes and things. And they all gradually came out. And they said, well, the person that you photographed in Santa Fe was started this community. His first batch of this crop of weed, they kept it, and they were going to have a special kind of ceremony to all smoke it together. And they said, well, it obviously is right. We should do it now. So there's about kind of 10 of us in the late afternoon sun, and they made this enormous spliff, and we passed it round, and I had 2 puffs of this, and I couldn't move. Literally, it was like in those movies where everything's moving fast. They're used to this stuff, and this was so strong.
Yeah.
And I literally watched it starting to get dark, and they're getting on with their business. I'm just sitting there in a kind of zombie-like state. I thought, shite, I'm on my kind of 2-week trip to find America. So I kind of crawled back to the car. I said goodbye to the ones I photographed, and I climbed in, and, again, I get arrested for this. I managed to drive back to Santa Fe, back to the hotel, and just check myself in my old room. And I slept for kind of 14 hours, and then went off the other way. I headed for California. But that was
wow.
I'm not sure was that a fun fact, or was that a story?
Yeah, it was a fun story to me. Jesus Christ. How often does that happen to anybody? Never, That's it. Yeah, crikey.
Well, you've got to be open, because I think we're all a bit scared of getting into tricky situations. And the most tricky thing was driving back stoned, about getting, I'd have got slung in jail, it was wrong. But I left it as long as I could. But it was this idea, I'm sitting there, it's daytime, and suddenly it's dark. And I literally, and they were just getting on with their work. They're used to this stuff, but I wasn't.
Fun fact, fun story. Love it.
Okay.
Sorry. No, don't apologize. Crikey, that's amazing. So what's your favorite word? I know it's another little weird one.
Okay. Which word is not, well, I used to use it as a scientist in a very different way. But in France, there's, in French slang, especially in the South, it's nickel. If something's really spot on, it's nickel.
Oh,
nickel.
Wow. Right, nickel.
And it means spot on. It's like they see a kind of someone's new car or so, they go nickel. There you go. Very short.
I've never heard that one before. So there you go. I'm still learning every single time.
You may have changed by now.
Yeah.
But that was the argot of the time. Yeah, no, I'm sure it's still going on.
Yes,
It's still going on.
So teach me a new word or a new saying I may not know, because it's an international podcast. Ask people all around the world for a saying I might not know.
Buy high, sell low.
Yeah, I love it.
Think about it.
No, you talk about electric bikes
That
now.
was straight off the top of my head. There you go.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it.
Be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So when did photography click for you? Obviously, excuse the pun, but when did you realise you could take a good photo?
I went to see the film Blow Up when it first came out. So when was that? It was about 68, 69. And I saw the film Blow Up, and it just hits. I went out and bought a camera the next day.
Wow.
That was when it started.
Yeah.
And then I taught myself to use it. It hit the spot kind of magically. And it's a film I see every year just to remind myself what a magic thing it is. I think having a camera, forgetting how good your pictures are, it's a passport to new worlds, new people. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
You can go up to a stranger with a camera and you say, can I take your picture? They'll say, why? And straight away you've started a conversation.
Yeah.
If you went up to them and saying, can I touch you? They wouldn't say why. They'd either run or hit you. But it's a wonderful passport to other lives. That's what I like about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Brilliant. Right. This is really the hardest one. I'm sorry. It's your favourite 3 photos you've taken and why you like them. And when you've been doing it so long, that's got to be a difficult one to do.
Right. Okay. My first ever assignment was fantastic. I got one when I left the Royal College. I got a thing called the Vogue Award. I worked for Vogue magazine for a year, and I had absolutely no fashion interest. I'm the most unfashionable person, but they liked my work. And I used to go to kind of parties. I did all sorts of things. I did some fashion, but you got a kind of low salary and you were working for the magazine. And my first assignment for them was to go and spend the night at a party with Andy Warhol. And, I thought, I'm very excited. So I got to the party before he arrived. As he arrived, I rushed to take his picture and my flash was over flashing. So it bleached out his face and he's got him coming out the car. But you can recognize it's Andy Warhol. It's a kind of like a white silhouette. And I really love that picture. And it's been used a lot. They never used it in Vogue. They used a more straightforward one. But that was, really one of my favorite photographs.
Yeah.
Let me think. Another one. Well, probably the one I'm kind of best known for was I was I went to Albania just before the end of the communist regime. We pretended we were archaeologists, and we managed to get photographed for about 2 or 3 weeks. I was with Mick Jagger's brother, and there were a group of us all pretending we were archaeologists, and we got away with it. And then the following year, the revolution started, and I knew exactly where I wanted to go. I wanted to go up into the mountains because they were closed to everybody. They're called the Accursed Mountains. And I persuaded the Sunday Times to put the money up to go, and I went with a writer. And we traveled the mountains. It was amazing. And we were in a village. There everything was outside, so it was kind of all very raw. The wedding one was there's a village called Bogga way up in the mountains, and I went to they invited me to the wedding party, and I just started taking pictures, and everybody, because whenever you're in Albania, Romania, you're a stranger and God are the same. That's one of their things. So they really treat you with respect very well, and they want to get you drunk. So everybody is throwing alcohol down your throat. And I got very drunk, and the bride had never been to the house before. They would always marry it to another village. It's obviously a way of not having interbreeding. So they would always move from one village to another. So the bride, it was her first day in the groom's house, and she was going to have to live with the family, new mother-in-law, and she would be really low on the pecking order. we're all absolutely paralytic. All the men were. Women don't get drunk in there. And the men were all kind of singing, and people forgot about me. And I'm kind of at the end of one. They packed in a wedding. They pack the tables with food because it's to show that they can afford to. A lot of it is about face. And so the table was full of food, and sitting at the end of the table was this bride on her own. All the men are kind of totally singing and clapping each other on the backs, and she's sitting sobbing at the end of the table. It's a wonderful picture. And I took just a couple of frames, and someone told me that it was her husband had just been given a trousseau bullet from her father, and it comes in a little basket, and the trousseau bullet is a bullet to be used if she tries to be unfaithful or tries to run away from home. So you could see why she was
not happy.
Floods of tears at the end of the table. Well, that's a very strong picture.
Yeah.
Oh, another one. I think it's going to be a very quiet one. It's one. My wife died about 6 weeks ago, and she had wonderful hands, and she was very ill for the last 2 years. But she was a writer. She'd written books, and we met through the Sunday Times magazine. So she's one of the editors on the Sunday Times magazine for a while. I'd always wanted to photograph her hands, and I kept on putting it off.
Yeah,
because the last 2 years I've been looking after and not going out taking pictures. And the day she died, in fact, that morning, I took a picture of her hands, and very beautiful. And it was in it, everything worked on it. I just took it on a phone, so it wasn't on a fancy camera, but it was, it's a very special picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, every picture has all this
memory,
attached story that you don't see when you see the picture.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. And did she?
Three.
So through your career, did she allow you to take many pictures of her? Because most spouses don't. They don't. What the hell are you doing?
She didn't mind. She didn't mind. It wasn't a problem. Yeah. I didn't take that many of her. I had a lot more problem with the kids. We got 4 kids, and some of the kids, they were being used for adverts, for all sorts of things, picture-wise. And so we've got 6 grandkids, and one of my daughters, she won't let me take pictures of the I can take pictures of them, but I can't put them into libraries. I can't use them.
Yeah,
and that saddens me because we have great fun and there's some great pictures to be had. I could have another income stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can understand. I can understand why they wouldn't want me to. They've been. Yeah, they've had to be taking all sorts of roles, and
child exploitation.
Of course, if you can't exploit your own kids, who can you exploit?
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. So, what advice would you give a new photographer?
Buy high, sell low. Here we go.
There you go. What have you written?
Photograph what interests you, really.
Of course.
And don't expect to make a living from it. You might do if you're lucky, but nowadays, everybody's a photographer. So another thing is be bold. I was in Atlanta doing the kind of real kind of South Atlanta, which is a kind of mainly black area and kind of quite tough. And I was with this guy, and we're going to clubs and stuff. And he always would put on he was white, and we're going to these clubs, and he'd always put on a very bright, silly hat. And it forced him to be bold. He said, because, once you do that, once you get through it, people are all the same. Once you've got the cut, find a way of finding your courage, really. I suppose that's what it is.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, don't look over your shoulders at what other photographers are doing. They let them do their own thing, have your own vision.
Yeah.
And finally, keep fit. If you can't walk, it's very hard to take pictures. I'm 77 now. So, I still do exercise, I cycle, and, don't carry too much equipment. My old assistant, I won't tell you his name because he'd probably be embarrassed, but he's a kind of successful photographer. This week he's having his knee replaced. He's only 51.
Wow.
And because he carried all this gear on one side,
Sure.
he was like that, the lunch pack of Notre Dame. It was, it's not good. There you go.
Yeah, perfect advice, especially with the fitness, because, you get to a certain point, you think, oh, actually, I'm going to have to do some exercise. This is ridiculous. And you do end up doing about 30,000 steps in a day when you have a decent day out with your camera.
Of course you do. And the other thing that gets harder, for me anyway, is you get low to take pictures and you think, oh, I'll stay down here. I quite like it here. Because, getting back up, down and up is hard.
Yeah.
But just, in a way, you don't need to use heavy cameras now. You can really ease up. I've spent the last 2 years, up until 2 years ago, I was doing everything on a large camera on a tripod. So a lot of it was about me. I had an assistant to kind of write things down mainly when I'm talking to the people, but I would just set the camera up on a tripod on a corner and walk up to strangers and say, can I take your picture? Most people say yes, as long as they know why, as long as you've got a reason that they can understand.
Yeah.
And you should know that conversation is going to happen before you go up to strangers, because they're going to say, well, why? And you've got to say whatever, because I like the length of your nose, whatever it is that going to make them happy.
Yeah.
And also be honest, say, look, I'm doing this. And one of the things I always do is give pictures with these portraits, especially on the internet. It's so easy just to send a low res file of the picture to the person, and that always pays off because you can get more information on them. Yeah. You've got their email to send the picture, and then you say, I don't know how many kids you've got. I had things missing, and you can just fill in your. Yeah. I had one that had a beautiful portrait of a woman with her daughter, and I sent the picture, and I said, I just wanted a bit more information. I said it sent it to her. He said, I'm not a her. I'm the father. And that was you'd never have known. Absolutely. Looked absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And that kind of led to other conversations. You never know.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the last question, and it's flown by. What's next? What's your next photography goals?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I'm doing a book on UFOs. It's not really. It's about things aren't always what they seem. So it's going to be a mixture of writing and pictures. And I only started that a month ago. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I've been collecting my pictures that have this strangeness about them. I'm always curious about, in a kind of suburban street, how there can be something strange. It can be the light. It can be the person with two heads. It could be all sorts of things. And so that's one, and it's a way of just exploring the word alien. What is an alien? And an alien is a stranger, really. Yeah. So it's the double entendre of the word alien I'm exploring. So it's starting off in looking at us on our planet, how we're kind of fucking up and stuff. And at the same time, it's looking at kind of strange encounters. And the pictures have got to have this, all of them have got to have some like a bit strange. So that's what I'm working. I'm quite enjoying that. I've spent the last month non-stop working at it. The writing of it is the most tricky now. I've got to get on with that. I'm starting. I'm building a kind of like a platinum print lab. When it depends on the price of platinum.
Yeah.
But I used to be a chemist, so I want. One of the trouble with I went to see a dealer who was like my work, but only was interested in my silver-based photographs, and I suddenly realized I could go from digital, because a lot of my recent work is digital, but I could make one-offs by making platinum prints.
Wow.
And I got quite curious about that, and I've got myself a little print box, and I'm gonna learn that. That's almost like a kind of old man's hobby thing, because I've got a lot of pictures that would work well. And I'm going back to photographing people on the street with this large camera, and not just photographing. I always kind of interview them. And I've always not liked putting a microphone in their face, because for kind of 3 years I stopped photography. I was making films and I was always having mics, and the mic really stops people. So I've just got myself a little kind of neck mic. So I'm going to try that, because otherwise I'm scribbling things down. I always need an assistant to be writing down everything they say, because often stuff comes out of conversations. If you ask a question, full of portents and things, you get funny answers. But if they're allowed just to chat, suddenly things will come out that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And so I've got this little kind of, it's almost like a pendant, but it's got a microphone on. I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it, really, I think. And then I'll die.
Of exhaustion.
Or maybe I'll die first.
No, don't do that. It's not recommended.
No, you've never been there. It might be good.
Oh, I'm glad we made this happen. The first time I ever saw you was at the London Street Festival last year. So I've only known of you for a year, which seems criminal, really. Obviously we've met recently as well, which is great. Yeah, your body of work, all the way through is just blows me away. Absolutely amazing.
I think we've got another book coming out on. It's a book with about eight photographers, all who photographed during lockdown. It worries me. I shouldn't be saying it's people trying to forget lockdown. I think it's a good book to do, because it's an important book. And I spent kind of the whole of lockdown, I was on my bike flying around, because I had a press card. So I had no problems I never saw any police. And I photographed empty London. So it was a unique opportunity.
When we forget what it was like, because I always thought we were going to wear a mask forever. When we're in the thick of it, I thought, God, we're never going to be able to take this damn mask off. And now, obviously, sometime down the line, we're back to normal almost,
Mm-hmm.
So 10 years later, though, be like, oh, yeah, do you remember? Oh, my God, I've forgotten about that. So maybe it's the future.
There'll be another one by then.
Oh, God, don't say that.
Yeah, no, I think there will be. Yes, it's a long tail. That's what that essay. It's a nice little book. But I think, it's not going to be an instant bestseller. You're right. You need 10 years of forgetting before it becomes. Yeah, it becomes more romantic looking back. Oh, it was better to be wearing a mask anyway. Well, the hot air would shoot up onto the viewfinder and steam up. Awful. Yeah. Another generation won't have ever experienced it. It will be. Yeah. Do you remember the war, Daddy? It's going to be. Remember the
COVID times. Yeah.
The COVID.
Thanks for being my guest. I really appreciate being here.
All right.